Hey guys, welcome to Cleburne State Park. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to not get lost on the Limestone Ridge trails. The Limestone Ridge trails are these two green trails in the bottom right hand corner of the map. We're parked right there at that red arrow where the Whitetail Hollow trail comes off of and the spillway trail. So this is one of the main trailheads at the park, and this gets really confusing to a lot of people because the trails aren't well marked out here. So I'm going to talk to you about why that is, show you how to not get lost on those trails, because I think those are two of the trails where people get the most confused, and just take a look around on a quick little afternoon day hike. So immediately after leaving the trailhead parking lot, you'll come to the trail that looks like this. Immediately to your left, as soon as you leave the parking lot, is the Whitetail Hollow trail. That's the pink trail. So you will follow that to go that direction, and it branches off into a couple separate little loops. But there's a main trail there that's fairly easy to follow. So moving straight ahead, you come down to this creek. This comes off of the lake. This is what drains off of the spillway here. And a lot of times during the year, there's hardly any water here. But other times it's really flowing. To access all the rest of the trails down here, you'll need to cross this small little creek. Like I said, normally you can just step right across, but sometimes you may need to go farther up and be able to hop across there. All the rest of the trails, the yellow trail and the two green trails, you'll access straight across this creek up this little trail here. So immediately across the creek, the trail splits. Off to the left heads toward the spillway trail, but you can also access the spillway trail heading straight. This split right here is not a big split, so either way you go is the exact same distance. And then our two Limestone Ridge trails are going to be over here to the right. All right, so this is just ahead at the next junction. You'll see the spillway trail to the left, Limestone Ridge trails to the right. This is just a small access road that the park personnel can drive into if they need to get closer up by the spillway. But up that way is the spillway, and then this direction, the two Limestone Ridge trails. So up until this point, everything is pretty well marked and pretty easy to follow. So the Limestone Ridge trails are both going to be to the left here. You can see the sign right there on our left, and then also a couple stickers on this closed gate. This gate just closes off a road that goes back to the maintenance area. So if you head past here, it doesn't go anywhere other than the maintenance area. So head up this way, up the hill, and get to the junction where a lot of people get confused. All right, so now we're to the main trail junction, and there are 4 different ways you can come out of this junction. So you can see why you may get confused. There used to be a sign here a year or 2 ago, but I guess it got knocked down or somebody moved it, took it, whatever. So here is the gist of what you need to do right here. So the dark green trail, the Limestone Ridge Inner Loop Trail, is this trail straight ahead as soon as you come up here, as well as this trail on the left. It is a loop, so it doesn't matter which one you go down. Just go either direction and you'll come out at the opposite trail. The trail does wind back and forth quite a bit. You will see the trail that you'll be hiking on farther up ahead of you. As long as you do not cut the trail and cross over to the other side, you'll be fine. Just stay on the trail, hike the trail like you're supposed to, and you'll come out just fine. You start cutting trails, it gets confusing on whether you need to go left or right on that trail, and people get confused. I know, I've done it before. The Limestone Ridge Outer Trail is over here to the right once you come to this big junction, and it goes a couple different directions. So this trail is going to start here, and it's going to end when it runs into the spillway trail, the yellow trail. So this is the trail we're going to hike today, and they have put up some brush here to show you that it's not down that direction. Don't get confused. This sign, I believe, is to say to turn back this way whenever you are coming in the opposite direction we're headed. So we're going to get on this trail, and once again, this is a trail that winds back and forth, and as long as you do not cut the trail, you will be just fine. You're not going to get lost. You start hopping trail, it's hard to tell which direction you need to go, and That's how a lot of people that I see on YouTube and on Facebook get confused on these trails. The Limestone Ridge trails, they're really pretty trails. They're in pretty heavily forested sections of the park, but they are confusing, and it does seem a little weird when you look at the map why they zigzag back and forth so much. And the reason that is that these trails were cut by mountain bikers without the permission of the state park a long time ago. And so they came out and cut these trails, and so they don't make sense compared to a lot of the other trails at the state park. But the state park just kind of adopted them and took them into their official trail system and have been maintaining them ever since. So it's also kind of funny that they have two trails that are very similar in name, the Limestone Ridge Trail and the Limestone Ridge Inner Loop Trail. They're both similar colors, dark green and light green. So they didn't make it easy on you, tried to make it as confusing as possible. And that's why a lot of people get confused on these trails. Just know the dark green trail, you're gonna come back out the exact same spot you started. The light green trail, you are gonna come out at the spillway trail, which is a really good loop for taking the spillway trail back to your car where you started at. You'll see a lot of different types of markers on these trails. Some of these are these cement markers that are painted. You'll see that other kind of marker over there on the left-hand side. We actually helped put some of those in out here, the very few of those that are out here. And then every once in a while, you will see a painted piece of metal that is nailed to a tree, just like it is up here. So that's telling you this is not the trail anymore. We're cutting across this road up to right here. Look for something like that. There's lots of markers out here for the trails that look like that. So I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about as far as cutting through trails. So this is the trail, you keep going straight here. But if you look through the woods over there, there is the trail farther along, farther up ahead, and you'll see this trail that people have been cutting through right here. This is an official part of the trail. So this is what I'm talking about is if you take this little cut through, then people get confused on whether they should turn left or right on that trail. And then they end up getting lost and turned around out here. Just stay on the trail, which is pretty easy to decide which one is the actual main trail. Just stay on that, and I promise you'll be way less confused. So these Limestone Ridge trails with zigzagging back and forth, you'll notice you'll go up the hill, back down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. And that's kind of cool for getting some elevation gain in a place that doesn't have a ton of elevation gain, but might be kind of annoying to people who aren't looking for that. But there is a few pretty good little hills out here to go up, as there are at a lot of the trails at Cleburne State Park. There's a fossil in the limestone. See a few of these out here on various trails, some really good ones up by the spillway. Well, it's been a little bit since I've been on this trail, but all of these signs are still up that we put up. So it's pretty well marked out here actually on the trail, but as you can tell, here's another one of those cut throughs. You can see just how close another section of trail comes to this. Like that is not the trail that we're on right now. And they put up some branches and stuff right here. Here's the trail that we're on. Clearly a sign right there to show you which way to go. That's not the way to go. I feel like it should be fairly obvious to be able to stay on the trail that you're currently walking on as far as crossing over. But like I said, have seen several people getting lost out here. I think the main thing, and I know I've said it several times, is just don't jump the trail, and it'd be pretty hard to get lost. Almost get a view through the trees of the ridge. I believe that ridge is outside of the state park, back toward the lime plant. Well, the trails start descending down here and then come out to an opening, and it's another area that I remember could somewhat be confusing. So here's the opening I'm talking about that you come to. You see Park's done a pretty good job putting rocks and branches and stuff along the side to kind of guide your way to the trail over this direction. Before they did all that, it was a little more of a spider web of trails out here and could have been kind of confusing. But with all the rocks, it's kind of hard to get off trail right there. So we're headed over toward the property line, and we're going to run into the fence line for the park. And then the navigating the trail becomes really easy because it's just a straight shot down the fence line toward the spillway trail. You can see we're at the property line now, and you'll see several homes right on the other side of the fence. There's not a ton of them. We're kind of out in the country, so it's not like a huge neighborhood over there. And then from here, you just go straight up the fence line, go over several ridges. You'll have to go up and down. So pretty good workout on this back side of the park. Pretty good view off this first hill. All right, so I just came to a fairly significant trail junction and got to talking about how this can be confusing also. So this is the trail junction where the Spillway Trail, the Limestone Ridge Trail, and kind of somewhat the Coyote Run Trail all come together. This is the sign that's here. It's either fallen down or been pulled out of the ground. And we got to talking about these stickers and the directions they're pointing, and can definitely see why it can be confusing. So the yellow trail is the Spillway Trail, and that is correct, going straight up there. And over here, this direction, they have it marked as the Limestone Ridge and the Spillway Trail, where they both come together. And I guess they're saying they run parallel along each other for a little ways, because I know the Coyote Run Trail starts at the little offshoot trail, the side trail that goes toward the overlook, that direction. So here's what's confusing about the sign, is it says Coyote Run Trail is that direction, which it is. But it doesn't officially start right here at this junction. The Limestone Ridge Trail, it's saying goes in that direction also, which would mean that it would parallel the Spillway Trail at the same time. So that is really confusing. I do definitely agree with that. But it is very clear that this direction is the Spillway Trail. And then in this direction, all these are right. The Coyote Run Trail and Spillway Trail are to the left, and the Limestone Ridge main section of that trail is up this direction, which is the way we came from. All right, so I know that was thoroughly confusing, but anyway, so now we are headed straight up here from the Limestone Ridge Trail, and we are now on the Spillway Trail, and we're headed up to the Spillway for probably the best overlook of the park, and then down into the Spillway, which is always really neat. There's not a ton of water right now. It should be flowing just a little bit, but during summer you come out here, it's pretty much going to be dry coming over the spillway. And then during spring or right after heavy rains, there'll be some really crazy shots of the waterfall, and it's really pretty. So I'll show you again whenever we get up here. All right, so we come to a split in the Spillway Trail, just kind of like how it was whenever we very first started off from the car. There's a split. The split isn't for very long, doesn't matter which direction you take. They're going to come back together. So the split off to the left is just going to go up to the overlook a little quicker, and the split off to the right stays a little lower, comes over toward the edge of the lake, and then goes right up to the overview. So it doesn't matter which direction you take, but I guess it can be somewhat confusing. And I remember talking to a ranger that used to work out here, and she said they've actually had someone call from this exact location before, called the park office, and was lost and didn't know what to do. So I guess it can be somewhat confusing. Anyway, just a little bit of a spider web of trails right here, but it's not a very big area. Just keep heading in the direction toward the lake, and you will be treated with a great view, and you'll be right on the trail. This trail is marked very similar to the Limestone Ridge Trail in that it's going to have some of the stand-up signs, but also the metal tabs that are nailed to the trees. And honestly, to me, the metal tabs are they're just as easy for navigation and they're probably way easier for a trail crew to mark the trails by nailing those up to the trees. So here's the view from the main overlook on the Spillway Trail. That is Cedar Lake. It's a small lake out here, but it's a no-wake lake, which is really nice for a relaxing day of kayaking, or you can take a motorboat out there. You just can't drive real fast. And here's the start of the spillway. Like I said, not really flowing at all. There's the first pool. The cool thing about this spillway is it's got lots of different tiers that are set up different. So that's the first little drop, and then you'll see it's got some heavy vegetation in that next section. And I'll take you down farther and we'll look at the main drop off of the spillway. Like I said, not flowing right now, but there are some really impressive amounts of water that come off this after some heavy rains. Here we are, just slightly down spillway a little bit. So there's that pool that's full of vegetation. There's another drop off, goes to that, and then you can't really make out the really big drop off that goes down to the lower level. We'll check that out here in just a second. So just like when we were ascending the hill, and there are a couple different trails to take up here, there's a couple different ways to come down. Like I said, these are not like major deviations from each other. They're going to be really close together. You're going to be able to see, like if your kids go down one and you go down the other, you're probably going to be able to see them the whole time before y'all come back together. So it doesn't matter which of these smaller trails you take. So this is the main area where all the little offshoots of this yellow trail come back together, and then you see the sign for it. You want to head down this main trail. These little side trails are just to get better views of the spillway itself. So here's the main drop off of the spillway, and then as you can tell, the creek's pretty much dry. Just left as these big pools right now, and sometimes you'll see some pretty good sized fish caught in those pools. Anyway, here's the main section of the spillway, and really a neat place. This was built back in the 30s by the CCC, who built a lot of stuff around here in the state park and around Cleburne. So now we're going to head up the spillway trail. It's just a short hike back to the car. So we're right back at the start of the trail. This is where the trail split originally. You can see off to the right is one spot, and then right up there, about as far as you can see on this trail, just right up there at the bend, that's where the other section of the trail comes out. So it doesn't really matter which one you take. You're not traveling any farther than you would on the other one. This one's a little more of an actual hiking trail, whereas the other one's kind of still that gravel road, but like I said, they're both the same. Almost back to the car. Well guys, thanks for following along. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Trust me, I definitely know the trails out here can get somewhat confusing. Hopefully this helped in some way, and hopefully there will be a push to better mark these trails. The park's doing better all the time. I know they seem confusing, but I know they're trying, and hopefully eventually they get really well marked. Appreciate you guys following along. Like I said, hopefully this helped, and we'll see you next time.